بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, we did this. ويضرب ضاربا. We did that. And I'm not sure if we did this part here, did we? ضم. Okay, I'll just start from the top, inshallah. So, إن زيدا يضرب وزيدا اسم منصوب بأن ويضرب مثل مضارع أوكي منصوب ومثال اختصاص الاسم بالخفض نحو بزيد فزيد اسم مخفوض بالباء. Right, so he's saying that what the signs of the ism is that it is okay. We're talking about the huruf, right? We're talking about the huruf, and so there's certain huruf that are specific to nouns, like a harf jar. If you have a harf jar before something, that means it makes it a noun. He says, ومثال اختصاص الفعل بالجزم نحو the sorry, not the signs. We're talking about the different types of i'rab. So we have these four different types of i'rab, and jazm is peculiar, is unique to the verb. He says, ومثال اختصاص الفعل بالجزم نحو لم يقم فيقم فعل مضارع مجزوم بلم. وهذه الأنواع الأربعة على ولي هذه العلامات أنواع الأربعة علامات أصول. Right, these are أساسية, normal, primary, the default signs. وعلامات فروع, right? Um, right, these are فروع. These are so he's using the word فروع, which means branches, which is a noun. He's using it either in its meaning as mushtaq, they are ثانية, ثانوية, right, a secondary and non-primary, or he's using it as what we call عطف بيان. So عطف بيان is when you describe one noun with another noun, and that second noun is a pure noun and not an adjective, right? Like in English, dishcloth, right? Dishcloth, cloth, right? Or sandpaper, right? So sandpaper. So in Arabic, you do that sometimes, not that common. But so furu' means branches, alamat means signs. So you mean branches signs? Yeah, meaning signs that are like not the original, they are kind of the secondary ones. So when you use a noun that is not mushtaq, it's not an adjective. ولا مؤول بالمشتق, and it doesn't really have the meaning of mushtaq. That's called عطف بيان. um, we'll discuss it later on, but it's possible. Wallahu a'lam. He says فالعلامات الأصول أربعة. Right, the primary signs of rafa is what? ضمة. للرفع نحو جاء زيد والفتحة للنصب نحو رأيت زيدا والكسرة للخفض نحو مررت بزيد والسكون للجزم نحو لم يضرب. Um, okay, that's the default. نحو لم يضرب ولي ولها مواضع. There are certain times when that's used. فأما الضمة فتكون علامة. So here, I don't know why. We have to understand that people are people, okay? And um, people think in different ways, right? Um, I'm a product of the 20th and 21st century West, okay? So I think in a certain way. For me, if you wanted to represent this information, you would represent this in a chart, okay? Um, Charts are not a very common thing to see at all. It's not a common thing to see anywhere. So when you're studying logic, it's all a chart, but they don't represent it as a chart. Balagha, right? A lot of this late stuff, this is late material, you can represent in a chart, right? That's how I would analyze things, right? I remember doing conjugation of a chart. They don't work like that. You know, that's not how they do things. The um uh what's it called? Periodic table in chemistry. We've spoken about that before, right? Like that's for me a chart, right? And I can see different things in different places. That's how we organize it. They don't work like that. And that's there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how they do things, right? So this is essentially a chart saying these are these four states. Okay, each state. And so based on the word category, it has a sign, right? فأما الضمة فتكون علامة الرفع في أربعة مواضع فالاسم المفرد الاسم المفرد. So the word mufrad we've seen before. What do we mean here? We mean literally mufrad meaning singular. The singular noun. Here is a singular noun. How will it demonstrate the rafa' state? You'll demonstrate the rafa' state with a dhamma. نحو جاء زيد والفتى. Right? وفاطمة. Right? So, right? So Fatimatu, okay, has a dhamma. Right? Um, in the rafa' state. Wal-fata, right? Uh, fata has a dhamma in the rafa' state, right? And we can all hear it, right? جاء زيد والفتى جاء الفتى جاء موسى, right? Can we all hear the dhamma? جاء الفتى.
No.
You cannot hear it, right? Why? Because it's dhamma muqaddara, right? Dhamma muqaddara. That's what he's trying to say. So Zaydun, you can hear it. If you stopped on the word Zayd, you couldn't hear it. You would say Ja'a Zayd, right? And you say Zaydun fa'ilun marfu'un wa alamatu raf'ihi ضمة مقدرة منع من ظهورها اشتغال المحل بحركة الوقف. I was too busy trying to stop on this word because that's how we speak in Arabic. So I couldn't show you the dhamma that's supposed to be on the word Zayd. But there it is. Okay? Similarly, wal fata, there's a problem, which is that you cannot pronounce a dhamma on an alif because alif is a vowel and dhamma is a vowel, so you can't do that. So you say فاعل مرفوع وعلامة رفعه التعذر, the impossibility of pronouncing anything on a word that ends in an alif. So that's the ism mufrad, right? وفي جمع التكسير, right? And also, I'm not sure why it doesn't mention the غير. It doesn't mention the غير منصرف. So for the غير منصرف as well, the dhamma, right? So mashallah, تزينت المساجد. جاءت هند, right? These are all also غير منصرف. Not sure why. Maybe he'll mention later on. وفي جمع التكسير نحو جاء الرجال والأسارى. Notice the same thing? والأسارى, right? And you could also والجواري, right? So جاء الرجال والأسارى والجواري, right? So جاء الرجال, رجال has a dhamma in the rafa' state. الأسارى has a dhamma مقدرة in the rafa' state. والجواري, right, has a dhamma مقدرة منع من ظهورها الثقل. Okay. وفي جمع المؤنث السالم أو مو. Is it هو جمع المؤنث السالم أو هو الجمع المؤنث السالم? How do we say it? هذا جمع مؤنث سالم وسالم. How do we say it? Sound?
سالم.
سالمون. جمع مؤنث سالمون. Why are we saying سالمون?
Because it's the jama' that's described as being salim.
So in English, we're saying sound, feminine, plural.
Yes.
Right? Plural is feminine, and the plural is sound. Right? So the plural is sound. So the jama' mu'annathin, the plural of a female, that is sound. Right? So jama'u mu'annathin salimun, or or جمع المؤنث السالم. Right here, obviously, it's majrur anyway, so you can't tell the difference. But the point is, the female is not sound. I'm not telling her, does she have a sound mind or is she okay? I'm not asking about that. I'm talking about the plural. Okay. So the word jama' is being described by the word salim. Okay. نحو جاء الهندات or الهندات or الهندات. Right. المسلمات. So that's has a ضمة. والرابع في الفعل المضارع المعرب نحو يضرب. وأما الفتحة فتكون علامة للنصب في 3 مواضع. في الاسم المفرد نحو رأيت زيدا. وجمع تكسيري نحو رأيت الرجال. والفعل المضارع المعرب نحو um, so he could explain this in another way. He say الفعل المضارع الذي لم يتصل بآخره نون التوكيد ولا نون الإناث. Right? So when you say the فعل المضارع that's معرب, when is it going to be معرب? You say, well, الفعل المضارع is going to be معرب if it's there's no توكيد, that's مباشر, that's directly connected to it, and it's not uh, and it's not connected direct, and it's not connected to a nun inath like يضربنا تجلسنا, etc. Right? So he could define it like that. He decided to define it in another way. He says, وأما الأذان الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. الله. Okay. فتكون علامة للخفض في 3 مواضع في الاسم المفرد نحو المنصرف. Okay, we did this, sorry. عرف المضارع نحو لن يضرب. وأما الكسرة فتكون علامة للخفض للجار في 3 مواضع في الاسم المفرد المنصرف, the normal, right? The normal اسم مفرد, right? So before we can throw in Hindu, Fatimatu. Now we can't throw in Fatimatu. Because here you say في الاسم المفرد المنصرف, that's منصرف and not غير not غير منصرف, right? And not غير منصرف, my apologies. So you say مررت بزيد, right? وجمع التكسير المنصرف نحو يعوذون برجال, right? But you couldn't put, for example, that you couldn't put what's it called? بلنارتا, right? You can't, that doesn't work because it's غير منصرف. لنارت is غير منصرف. يعقوب, right? إبراهيم, right? فاطمة, etc. right? وبجمع المؤنث السالم باقيا على جمعيته نحو مررت بهندات. I walked past a bunch of women called Hindat, right? A bunch of women who were they were all called Hind, right? Or if you made it plural, marartu bil Hindat, same thing, right? So as long as it's a bunch of women, it's plural. باقيا على جمعيته, right? It's still plural. Okay, so how could it not be plural, right? We mentioned before the place Azri'at, right? Azri'at is a place to the north of Jordan. Azri'at is called Dir'a today. Azri'at, that's a place. It's not a places, it's a place. Azri'at. Okay. Similarly, Zainabat and Fatimat, right? That's a name in Egypt, right? Fatimat. You called your single daughter, who was singular, you called her Zainab's, and right, and Fatima's. Okay, so that's different. Okay. وجمع المؤنث السالم باقيا على جماعته خرج به لو سميت واحدة باسم الجمع, right? So if she had a name like that, and that does exist. And we'll talk about that in a second. وأما السكون فيكون علامة للجزم في موضع واحد في الفعل المضارع الصحيح الآخر نحو لم يضرب. Okay, so that's clear so far. That's the default. Now we're going to go to the secondary signs. والكسرة where are we? وأما العلامات الفروع فسبع: الواو والياء والألف والنون والكسرة نيابة عن الفتحة، والفتحة نيابة عن الكسرة، والحذف فينوب عن الضمة. Right, ثلاثة. So he's going through all these different things. One second. فسبع: الواو والياء والألف والنون. الكسرة نيابة عن الفتحة فتح، والفتحة نيابة عن الكسرة، والحذف فينوب عن الضم ثلاثة: الواو أبوك، الألف الرجلان، والنون يجلسون. Right, right. So I say هذا كتابك وهذا أبوك. So the wow is standing in the stead of the dhamma. Right. هذان كتاباك. These are your two books. So alif is taking the place of the dhamma. Right. Whether it's mudaf or not mudaf, the same. Rajulani is also, right. The sign of it being in the rafa' state is the alif. والنون, right. يجلسون. Not لن يجلسوا or لم يجلسوا, but يجلسون. Right. وينوب على الفتحة أربعة: الكسرة والياء والألف وحذف النون. وينوب عن الكسرة اثنان: والفتحة والياء. وينوب عن السكون واحدة وهي حذف حرف الأخير. فالواو تكون علامة للرفع نيابة عن الضم في موضعين: في جمع مؤنث في مذكر السالم نحو جاء الزيدون والمسلمون. Right? So the oo is taking the place of the u. So instead of زيدون you're saying زيدون المسلمون. والثاني في الأسماء الستة نحو هذا أبوك وأخوك وحموك وفوك وذو مال وهنوك في لغة قليلة. Okay, so we often talk about the 5 special nouns, الأسماء الخمسة. Right, these words you say أبوك أباك أبيك. Right, أخوك أخاك أخيك. حموكي, your father-in-law. Right, um, 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 and also your brother, your in-laws, basically, your male in-laws for a woman's male in-laws. Right, Hamuki. Fuka, your mother, your mouth, sorry, not your mother, your mouth. Right, you say bifikat turab. Right, that's a curse in classical Arabic. May dirt be in your mouth. Right, bifika. Right, dhu malin. So all of them, they're all mudaf. Right, so if it's not mudaf, it doesn't work. Right, dhu is only ever used as mudaf anyway. But then it mentions, why is it saying 6? Right, and what's hanuka? So hanuka is means your thing. Some of them, some scholars, they say it means like anything, like your thingamajigamy, right? That's what it means. Others say it specifically means your male sexual member, right? Your private parts, right? That's what it means. But then it says في لغة قليلة, according to one dialect. So there are 3 dialects of how to use these nouns. Okay, 3 dialects of how to use the nouns. Okay, there is one dialect which is called qasr. Qasr means ending on an alif. So how do you think they sound? If they all end in an alif, how will they sound?
أبا
هذا أباك.
أباك
ومررت به.
أخاك.
Exactly. So basically the whole time you say right? This is how it is, right? هذا أباك، رأيت أباك، مررت بأباك. هذا أخاك، رأيت أخاك، مررت بأخاك. هذا حماكي رأيت حماكي مررت بحماكي. Right. هذا هناك رأيت هناك مررت بهناك. Right. That's a لغة. Okay. That's called لغة القصر. Right. That's one way of saying it. إن أباك وأبا أباك. Right. إن أباك وأبا أباك قد بلغ من المجد. What is it? قد بلغ من المجد something غايتاك or غايتاك or غايتاه. Right. إن أباه وأبا أباه قد بلغ من المجد غايتاه. Right. Your dad and your dad's dad, both of them have reached the utmost peak of glory. Right? That's of the shawahid for that لغة. Right. إن أباك وأبا أباك قد بلغا من المجد غايتاك. It should be غايتاه. Right. إن أباه وأبا أباه قد بلغا من المجد غايتيه. Right. It's two limits. غايتيه, not غايتاه. But hey, that's also a لغة, right? That you just keep it as an alif. So that's one لغة. The other لغة is لغة
So, Sheikh,
النقص. Go ahead.
Sheikh, in this scenario, it becomes mabni, or it still remains the
No,
morab?
no, it's معرب بعلامات مقدرة. So it's going to have a ضمة مقدرة, كسرة مقدرة,
Okay.
فتحة مقدرة. It's going to be like أصاكة. Okay. So anyway, that's a لغة. Yeah, that's a dialect. You don't really hear it very much. Then you have لغة النقص. Okay, النقص is where you shorten the sound. So how do you think it's going to sound now?
أبك.
أبوك. Yeah. هذا
أبوك. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
كتاب.
أبوك أخوك.
Mhm.
But there's also the changing with the حركة أخيك or
Uh,
not.
Say it again. Putting the حركة on the wow.
For example, we have أبوك, we say أبوك.
Yeah.
And then we have أبيك, we say أبيك.
Yeah. So there's
Okay.
the normal لغة, which is أبوك أباك أبيك. Okay, that's the normal لغة. So we have لغة القصر and then لغة النقص, which is أبوك أبك أبيك. أخوك أخيك أخك. Right. Right. Now, why is that important? That's important because most Arabs did not say Hanuka and Hanaka and Hanika. Most Arabs, they used the dialect of Naqs for Hanuka. So now you're going to find the average, if you went out in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and did a survey, you interview people in different places. Hi, I'd like to talk to you. How's your camel, etc. Go and talk to these people. You would say, what's this? What's that? Ask them to speak. You're going to say, oh, hey, you dropped your thing. And they would say, right? They would say Hanaka and Hanuka and Hanika, not Hanuka and Hanaka and Hanika. Most of them would treat the word Han as if it had just two letters, like the word ibn, right? Ibn is ba noon wow, but we drop the wow totally and we say bnuka, and then we add the hamzat al-wasl ibnuka, right? So most Arabs would treat it like that. They treat it as if khalas is two letters, like yeduka, right? And that's it. We're not gonna say hanuka. So therefore, if most Arabs treated it as Hanukkah, that's why we call it al-asma al-khamsa, right? That's why we call it al-asma al-khamsa, the five nouns. Because practically speaking, most people say هذا أبوك أبا أخوك حبوك فوك ذو مال وهنوك. And it's just treated as a normal ism mufrad. So why even mention it? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
And this comes in the hadith. What is it? من افتخر فليعض على هني أبيه. Right? Whoever's boasting about I'm so and so, son of so and so, son of so and so, right? Right? Telling him to bite on his dad's thing. Wow. Right? That's quite an interesting hadith. Okay? On his dad's thing. فليعض على هني أبيه. Hani. Ha noon. There's no ya of his father. Right? Hani abihi, right? On his dad's thing. right? Meaning his dad's private parts. So that's with a kasra, right? And not with a ya. Okay. Okay, so that's that. Well,
Sheikh,
alif.
So
Go ahead, Mohammed.
in the last لغة النقص,
Mhm.
would we say the علامة is still واو ألف and ياء, or
No, it's just
ضمة?
Dhamma
Yeah,
Fatha. So we could add, if you wanted to be pedantic, you could add it in here. Where is it? In the alama to, a dhamma. So you say, well, the dhamma is also a sign in abuka abaka in the asma al-sitta al-asma al-sitta ala lughat al-naqs, right? So there's now gonna have the normal signs as well.
yes.
But it never comes up, right? The only discussion that we have is this, right? Why is it not 5 or 6? That's all, right? Um, okay, where do we get to? والألف تكون علامة للرفع نيابة على الضمة في المثنى نحو الرجلان نحو قال رجلان، وتكون الألف علامة للنصب نيابة عن الفتحة في الأسماء الستة نحو رأيت أباك وأخاك وحماك وفاك وذا مال وهناك في لغة قليلة. Yeah, go ahead, Ibrahim.
So I'm sorry, my computer just shut down. What exactly was the three dialects? We said لغة القصر, لغة النقص. لغة النقص just
I don't know what the normal one's called. Is maybe لغة it's called mad, maybe? I'm not sure. I think it's called I don't know what it's called. But anyway, so basically you say most Arabs would say this: هذا أبوك رأيت أباك مررت بأبيك وهذا حنك وهذا ورأيت هنك ومررت بهنك. Right? So they would have the five. Most Arabs would treat those five nouns in one way with the a, u, e, and they would treat the word han with just a fatha dhamma kasra.
so therefore some don't include it in
Yeah.
the
And
sorry.
including it is just being pedantic, right? It's just being pedantic,
Okay.
right? And so they just say, okay, asma sitta, okay,
And what's the third one?
لغة نقص. So is now I'm going to say أبوك أبك أبيك and هنك, right? And then the third one is قصر. هذا أباك رأيت أباك مررت بأباك هذا أخاك, etc.
No, that's two now. And what's the third one?
The normal.
I don't know. Okay, sorry.
So the normal one was أبوك أباك أبيك, right? And هنوك هناك هنيك.
What's the لغة called?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know what it's called. It's like that's the normal lugha. It's called maybe لغة المد or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure what it's called.
I just write down لغة العادة.
Yeah, يعني اللغة المشهورة.
I'm sure.
Here, when
Okay.
we say lugha, what do we mean? We mean dialect, right? We don't mean a different language, of course. Right? Okay.
المشهورة doesn't include the هنوكة. Or does it?
I think it's called mashhura. I'm trying to think. How does it call in that here?
Looking up online, I think it's called إتمام.
Itmam. Jazakum khair. Itmam, right? Itmam meaning you're giving it its full amount. Itmam, right? Because the opposite of naqs. Naqs versus itmam. Jazakum khair, Muhammad.
So we include in the لغة الإتمام that هنوكة, هناكة.
So
We include it.
so some of the Arabs would treat the word Hanuka with itma as they would with the other logo of itmam, and they say Hanuka, Hanaka, Hanika. But that's extremely rare.
Okay.
Mhm.
جزاكم الله خيرا.
Right? Like what is it? Like how do you say apple in German?
Apfel.
Apfel. Okay. But apparently in Saxony they say apple.
Abel. Yeah.
Yeah. Apple. Okay, is it with a B?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm asking you, how do you say apple? Like, and they say, well, it depends which place. Like, bro, you need to tell me where. Like, when am I ever gonna say apple? Right? That sounds weird. That's not normal, right? Or how do you say, how do you pronounce ask? I say, well, it could be ask or ask, right? Say, well, there's also axe, It's like, well, why are you telling me axe? Right? That's not a normal thing. If I want to be pedantic and thorough and I want to totally master this thing called Arabic language, okay, Bismillah. And so this pedanticism is kind of annoying, but it's also part of their attitude that this isn't an amana. And if we don't do this, Arabic language can be lost, right? And so they kind of go to these extremes of like mentioning every single thing possible and impossible and very technical about this thing, about that, because it's this is the key to the Quran, right? But some of it sounds, it's kind of it just kind of seems to be too much, right? And some of it is pedanticism. What do I mean by pedanticism? Or I'm sure there's another word for it, but it's basically a certain time in history where you really have nothing else to do, right? Like, how to explain this? Like in history, like there's some quote I got to find it somewhere where somebody said that he said, our fathers went into war so that we can read Shakespeare. Meaning, at the beginning of a civilization, excuse me, people are busy building the civilization. They don't have time for stupid or pointless academic points. They deal with things like war, right? And, they don't deal with refinery. But there's certain stages in history where a civilization or, a country or power will be very, very powerful. And so they basically have time to waste. So people ask dumb questions and get dumb answers, right? Nobody was worried about the Mongols coming in. Nobody's worried about this. Nobody's worried about that. So what do? They just sit there and talk. And then 1,000 years later, we come along and we read what they were talking about, and it's kind of silly, right? Sometimes it's very useful, and sometimes it isn't, right? Sometimes it's very useful, what they talk about, and sometimes it isn't. So sometimes when you have high culture and high society, it's kind of pointless. Like what they're even talking about, like, what is it? What's the point of this? Like there's no benefit there's no benefit in it, right? And then we will see some of those things here and there. And there's other things that no, this is a very deep discussion that's very useful, right? It's like weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Yeah, okay. And so because everything is people think and write in a response to the problems, be it physical or intellectual problems of their time, right? And then sometimes you don't have enough problems, right? So, and so it's not even so then it becomes pedantic, like there's actually no benefit in this discussion and it's pointless, right? But it's rarely the case in this, because again, with our ulama, they are ulama rabbaniyun, right? So even if you're reading it and you're like, isn't this pedantic? Isn't this kind of like pointless? Didn't he say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim when he started? Didn't he make, like, you read his beginning and he's like, yeah, from a long time I should I write this hashia, a third hashia on this book in Mantiq? And it's like, yeah, we already know the argument. Like, why are we going into the hair-splitting subtleties of the argument? I made istikhara and I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so, sometimes we'll read things that seem pointless to us, but they're not pointless to Allah. Like the person, he went into this and he found for him, that was an important part of his amana as a scholar. And he wrote these things, and you think it's hair splitting or you think it's pedantic, but it's not necessary. Right. Anyhow. Could we say that all those intra-Sunni Aqidah wars are not yeah, they're not very useful, are they? It was funny, who's heard of the Madkhalis?
Yeah, of course, Sheikh. Who
Of
hasn't
course,
heard
right?
of them?
Did you know that I don't know who they are?
They were? What?
Did you know that I don't know who they are?
Oh, you don't know?
Yeah. Is that good or bad?
That's very good. You don't need to know.
Exactly, right? So I was like, I've heard Madkhalis before, right? And I was like I don't know who they are.
Is it like ملوخية, like the food?
No, right? But it's like the point is, I'm saying is like, if I'm busy doing my job, I don't need to know what some bunch of guys are saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of things that are happening around you. right? So like being a talib ilm is like being a surgeon when your hospital is being bombed, right? And you're like, oh, I wonder how they kind of like did the plumbing of this hospital. Like, Habibi, just do your job for crying out loud, right? Just do your job for crying out loud. So focus is important, and you will find that, it's good to sometimes not know about certain things. Like, I don't need to know. It's not actually my job, but when it comes up, I'll find out about it. And so, yes, sometimes discussions are pointless, and you're like, Alhamdulillah, I don't know that discussion, and it's irrelevant. I don't need to know it, right? And sometimes things are irrelevant for some people, not other people, right? Subtleties in, half of the ilal in hadith are pointless as well. There's this ilal and hadith. There's nothing wrong with the hadith. The hadith's fine. It's insignificant. That subtle error that somebody found, like, really? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't change anything. But it's important for him to do that, right? I can appreciate that. And maybe I can't appreciate it, like meaning I don't understand its value, but it could be have value. So never look at something with disdain, right? Unless it's written by somebody who's a bad person, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't do that. You have to have respect, but maybe that's not the thing for you. It's not important for you, right? Wallahu a'lam. Okay. وفي الأسماء أسدت نحو مررت بأبيك وأخيك. Okay, fine. والياء تكون علامة للنصب نيابة standing in the stead of الفتحة في المثنى المنصوب نحو رأيت الزيدين وفي الجمع المذكر السالم نحو رأيت الزيدين. والنون تكون علامة للرفع نيابة عن الضم في الأفعال الخمسة. أفعال الخمسة, right? وهي تفعلان ويفعلان وتفعلون ويفعلون وتفعلين. تكون الأمثلة الخمسة, the 5 patterns, or الأسماء الأفعال الخمسة. والكسرة تكون علامة للنصب نيابة عن فتح في الجمع المؤنث السالم نحو رأيت الهندات, right? والفتح تكون علامة للخفض نيابة عن كسرة في الاسم الذي لا ينصرف وهو, you can go on now, ما كان على وزن صيغة منتهى الجموع, right? So in Arabic we have this idea of normal and not normal, default, not default, okay? When a word is super weird, meaning it's got more than one weird thing about it, right? It's really, really weird. Then what happens is it's treated in a different way, okay? So for example, it's a female, right? Well, a female weird, they're not weird, but they are not the default. The default is a word is masculine, right? Right? When you're learning Arabic, you don't have to learn whether a word is masculine or not. You have to learn whether it's feminine or not, right? Shams. What is it? Shamsun jamilatun jamilun. Jamilatun. How did I memorize that? Right? It's not like German, right? You're gonna go insane. Is this right? Masculine, feminine, neuter? Like, give me a break, right? It's not like that. So in Arabic, it's the default, right? The default words are masculine, right? So therefore, the non-default is feminine. The default is a word is nekira. It's indefinite. The non-default is definite. So when you have a word which is both the female and definitely definite, meaning it's a proper noun, right? It's a name. Then so it's a feminine name, that's considered weird. Fatima is considered weird, right? Foreign name, weird, right? Here, Sirat Muntaha al-Jumur. It's on the pattern of a word that you could never possibly make plural, right? So think about in English, right? Just the sound in English. Could you make most words plural? Like if I said, for example, computer, right? Computers. Cat, cats. Destructions, right? We don't really say destructions. It's not a common word to say, but you could do it, right? You could get the word and you can make it plural, okay? Can you make children plural? No. Does it sound odd in English when you get a word that ends in an S and try to make it plural? Like geese. No, geese is already plural. But like cheeses, that's a bit weird, right? Cheeses. It's a bit strange. Like, awkward to say. Prices. That's kind of awkward, right? So there's certain words in English, it kind of sounds a bit funny to make it plural, okay? To make it plural would be a bit weird. So the same thing in Arabic, right? So you can get most words and in principle, not in reality, but in principle make them plural, right? So let's look at this word thamara, for example. Thamara, right? The fruit. So plural is thamar. Okay, what's the plural of thamar? Thimar. Okay, what's the plural of thimar? Thumur. Okay, what's the plural of thumur? Athmar. Okay, what's the plural of athmar? Athamir. Okay, what's the plural of athamir? Got ya. Well, you can't make athamir plural. Why? Because you can't. Why? You just can't. Okay, that's called sirat muntaha al-jumu'. You've now stopped. You can't go any further. Right? Sahib, sahb. Ashab. Ashab, asahib. You can't go any further now. So there is this pattern. It's called a sira, a pattern, that when you get to this point, you couldn't make it plural anymore. It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Okay? So some words have plurals of plurals and plurals of plurals of plurals. Some of them don't, right? That's not the point. The point is there are certain patterns that you could make that plural. Like, so I said thimar, and I'm thinking in my head kitab. So the plural of thimar is thumur, like kitab kutub. And the plural of thumur is athmar, like thuluth athlath, right? And then af'al, afa'il. I don't know what's an example of a word that's on that pattern. Af'al, afa'il, I don't know. But I'm sure there's words like that. So you could kind of like, there's a room for it. There's a structural room for it in principle. Whereas these words are so weird, like masjid, masajid, you couldn't make it more plural. That's called sirat muntaha al-jumu' on a pattern that doesn't accept to become pluralized. So that is really, really weird. So now we're going to treat it in the weird category and say, yeah, that's something else. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
Right? Everybody else? Muhammad Aslam, Leonard? Yeah?
Makes sense.
Okay, great. Okay. صيغة منتهى الجموع. It says, وضابطه كل جمع, every plural, بعد ألف تكسيره حرفان. After the alif, of its taksir, i.e. it's a plural, it's a broken plural, you made it broken plural by throwing in an alif into the middle of it, and after that alif, there are two or more letters, right? كمساجد وصوامع أو ثلاثة أوسطها ساكن كمصابيح وقناديل أو كان مختوما بألف التأنيث المقصورة كحبلى, something else now, okay? So masajid, masajid, right? As simple as that. And again, what is the point? It sounds super weird, right? In English, a word's ending in US, right? Whenever you have a word ending in US in English, you kind of stop and say, how do I make this plural again? Campus. Like, how do you use the word campus in German? Does that exist?
Yes, yes.
How do you make it plural?
Good question. Next question. I don't know.
Right? So in English, right? So the thing is, in English, I like you say, imagine if I was at school, I was at, the equivalent of Hogwarts, right? And I did Latin at school, and everyone's like, oh, it's campi. So, well, campus campi, right? Isn't it? Right? Depending on like radius radii, right? But are you speaking Latin? Are you speaking English, bro? Like, yeah, I'm kind of confused. It's kind of a weird word, right? It's just like that. So is it campuses or campi? And they're like, bro, nobody says campi. Okay, what do I supposed to say? The campuses? I guess campuses, right? Syllabuses. And I said, no, it's syllabi. I said, okay, right? It's kind of weird. They're like the words are kind of awkward, right? These are awkward words. That's essentially what they're doing. Okay.
In
Okay.
French,
Mhm.
if you have a word that ends in S, you just don't do anything to it.
You don't do anything,
Leave it
right?
like that. Yeah.
Mes fils, right? Mon fils,
Yeah.
mes fils, right? Just leave it like that. Um, okay, so that's weird, right? So you can imagine a kid who's like stuck, like, how do you make it plural? You know, he's in class in whatever grade. He's like, how do you make, yeah, I don't know. They don't really think about it. And like, how do you even say it? So it's tricky, right? Tricky words, that's the point. So second one then, he says, أو كان مختون بألف التأنيث المقصورة كحبلى أو الممدودة كحمراء. Okay, so it's مختوم بألف التأنيث المقصورة. What does it mean? ألف التأنيث المقصورة, it means a زائدة, right? So حبلى, the way he defines it, just a practical definition though, is you have your 3 root letters and an additional ألف التأنيث. Okay, so حبلى, حمراء, علماء, شهداء, أولياء, right? I can't think of anything else. Okay, so hubla, so as opposed to huda, asa, no, that's asa is not even maqsura, but so huda, right? You say hudan, that's not غير منصرف, right? It's not غير منصرف. Hudan. Bushra غير منصرف. Why? Because it's 3 root letters, ba, shin, ra, extra alif maqsura. That's غير منصرف, right? أو كان مختوم بألف التأنيث المقصورة كحبلى أو الممدودة كحمراء أو اجتمع فيه العلمية وزيادة الألف والنون. So it's a name that has an in it. Imran, someone's name is Burhan, that's his name, Burhan. Imran, Farhan, his name is Farhan, right? أو العلمية والتركيب, right? And I'm not sure why he didn't. He's going to mention it right at the end, right? Anyway, so name plus زيادة الألف. Name plus تركيب. المزجي. مزج means the mix. كبعل بكة وحضرموت, right? So مزج is you got 2 words and you made 1 word out of it, right? You made 1 word out of it, right? So like break, fast becomes breakfast, right? You made 1 word out of it, right? It's not really 1 word, but maybe another example is better. But the point is you got hadara al-mautu and then you got hadramaut. It's 1 word, right? So ba'labak in Lebanon, right? Al-Ba'li is from Lebanon. Isn't he one of the Hanabila? So and so Al-Ba'li. I think he's from
Yes, yeah.
Lebanese, right? Al-Ba'li.
Yes, البعلي.
Every lesson I have to mention something about Hanabila just to keep the crowd happy, right? كيف على بكة أو العلمية والتأنيث name weird, that's not normal. Feminine, weird, right? فاطمة وطلحة. Okay, so why is he giving an example طلحة?
Because the name is for boys, but
So he's
the
not saying this
لفظا it's مؤنث.
exactly, right? So he's saying ولو كان لفظا فقط, right? So Fatima, okay, that's a female's name. Yeah, but it's not necessarily a female's name. It could be Talha, Hamza, right? Or Zainab, there's no ta مربوطة. Maryam, right? أو العالمية ووزن الفعل كأحمد ويشكر, right? ويزيد, right? Right? So Ahmad is on the pattern of a verb. Yashkur is on the pattern of a verb, right? So these names on the pattern of a verb are also going to be غير منصرف. أو العالمية والعدل means تغيير, change, right? كعمر, right? Originally it's عامر, right? Okay, no worries. Okay, كعمر. أو العالمية والعجمة, it's a name plus foreign, right? And I always think I don't mean to speak German, but the word Munich, right? Why do we say Munich? Like what is it in German?
München.
Okay, München. So it's a bit difficult for us to
München.
pronounce. So what do? We like butcher it, right? Destroy the word. Like why can't you say Munchen, right? Oh, it's hard, right? It's hard to say like it sounds foreign to us, sounds difficult, right? So we butcher it. So we say Munich, right? There's lots of scenarios like that where you hear something like somebody called me, right? They called me like one of my teachers at school. He called me Farouk. And I'm like, how did you get from Farid to Farouk? Because Farid is weird. It doesn't fit into his head. So he deals with it linguistically in a weird way. Does that make sense? Like we do a lot of that, right? So Alami and Ujma, it's like a weird word, right? Gaza for Gaza, yeah. So, I mean, Gaza got a ghain, right? Gaza. Okay, but even Gaza, right? Gaza is kind of hard for us to say. Gaza, right? So it's difficult, right? We kind of like but like sometimes it's like more than that. Like how is it that difficult? Bombay, like how'd you get there, you know? Or Beijing and Peking, right? It's like, whoa, what did you do to it? So the point is, obviously, anything foreign is hard so for Arabs, they have these words coming in that they're very different. It's quite different, right? والعجمة كإبراهيم, right? And hence you have, for example, different ways of saying Ibrahim, Ibrahim, Abraham, Abraham. This is all Arabic, right? Etc. أو الوصف والعدل, right? كأخر, right? أخر is the description, right? It's the plural of أخرى. So it's supposed to be something like أخريات, but we say أخر. So it's wasf, it's a description, plus it's gone through that change on the pattern فعل, right? كعمر and أخر. أو الوصف وزيادة الألف والنون. So any description that ends in an, سكران, عطشان, فرحان, زعلان, right? Now, but Oryan is not of one of these. So Oryan, and there's a bunch of other words. Inshallah, somebody can bring them up. Inshallah, I had them we saw them in the Alfiya class. Like 14 words are on this pattern. They're on the pattern. They are descriptions that end in an, but they're not ghayr munsarif. And on top of that, the feminine has a ta marbuta. So here you say ana sakranu, anti sakra, ana ghadbanu, anti ghadba. Okay. But there's other words that we use, 14 words in Arabic, that when we use them, number one, they're going to have a tanween, like the word oryanun and oryanatun, right? We use that word like that. أو الوصف ووزن الفعل كأحمر. So أحمر is on the pattern of a verb, but it's also it's a wasf, so description on the pattern أفعل. Okay. خير. أكبر, right? هذا أكبر من كذا, not أكبر. Okay. خير. We didn't see Zainabat. So just quickly mention Zainabat. So how do we deal with Zainabat? Right? So you named your daughter Zainabat. How do we do this? So I can treat her as Jama' Mu'annath Salim. I can say هذه زينبات ومررت بزينبات ورأيت زينبات. Okay? Or I can treat it as غير منصرف. هذه زينبات ومررت بزينبات ورأيت زينبات. Okay? Or you can do a hybrid, which is keep the kasras of the feminine plural, but the lack of tanween of the mu'annath of the غير منصرف. So هذه زينبات, so no tanween. ورأيت زينبات ومررت بزينبات. Okay? So treat it as treat it as feminine plural, treat it as غير منصرف or treat it as a hybrid, right? أذرعات هذه أذرعات رأيت أذرعات مررت بأذرعات. That's one dialect. Another dialect, treat it غير منصرف. هذه أذرعات, right? مررت بأذرعات ورأيت أذرعات. And then the middle one is treat it as غير منصرف vis-a-vis the tanween, and treat it as جمع مؤنث سالم vis-a-vis the حركات. So هذه أذرعات مررت بأذرعاتي ورأيتها أذرعاتي. Okay. كسكرانة أو الوصف, right. Okay, خير. Inshallah, we'll stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Yeah, your name's hard, Shibri, right?
Yes. One sheikh said to me in the class, Shuaib, and I was like confused. Why he's saying Shuaib? I don't know someone who is Shuaib. And he said like a second or third time. And I was like, oh, sheikh, you mean me? Yes. Yeah, it was quite. That's why I've been in Arabic, right? I've always in Arabic in all classes because it's
too hard. I
easier
can't read
to
it.
read.
I can't read it right in English. Like when you write like what?
Yeah, don't worry if you don't need to. Yeah, inshallah.
خير. Inshallah, name your daughter Shahrazad, and
I don't think so.
another one Adriat, and another one what's it called?
Sounds like Persian.
Copperopolis.
SubhanAllah.
What's the longest name in German? I know you have lots of long words, but if in German